Hi folks, welcome to your next point on the tour. You can see behind me here I'm standing in what's known as Federation Valley, and we can see here behind me the Federation Pavilion, or the most current iteration of the Federation Pavilion, I should say. So this valley that we can see around us is called Federation Valley in connection to the idea of the Federation. So Federation, for those not familiar, was the unification of the six, up until that point in 1901. The 1st of January 1901 was Federation, and up until that point was 6 separate colonies around Australia, and then with Federation there was the unification of that into the Commonwealth of Australia. This is the point where the proclamation of that Federation happened in the 1st of January 1901. So this is Federation Valley, Federation Pavilion. This is very much a key part of Australia's colonial history in the early 1900s. So whilst the park was opened in 1888, a few years later in 1901 is when the celebrations for the Federation happened here in the park. So during that week of celebrations there was 60,000 attendees came into Federation Valley here, and they had tiered seatings, there was all sorts of marching bands and a huge celebration for the unification of the Commonwealth of Australia. Once again, we need to be very critical about who was excluded from those celebrations and who in the archives is not represented as well. So this was very much a celebration of white Australia and the federation of a white Australia at that as well, into the Commonwealth of Australia that we see now. So Federation Pavilion, what we see behind us now, was actually constructed in 1988 for the bicentenary celebrations. So there's a few things to get kind of murked up here. So the bicentenary celebrations were in 1988 to celebrate the 200 years of European occupation in Australia. But in 2001 was the centenary of Federation. So this was used as a site of celebration in both the bicentenary but also the centenary of Federation as well. So this here, the original Federation Pavilion is no longer here. That original one was built for 1901. By about 1903, it was a wooden structure. It started to get deteriorated. Commonwealth Stone, which is situated inside the pavilion where the unification happened, that still stands today. So that original Commonwealth Stone is still there. The structure around it though, the 14-metre wooden structure, totally gone. About 1904, the stone itself was all that remained with an iron fence around it. 1988, they built the Federation Pavilion that we see here now, and it has a lot more nationalistic messaging going on with inside the structure itself. So we'll have a little look inside there and you'll have a chance to look in there. But if you do have a chance to come into Federation Valley in person, it's quite an impressive structure. You can't actually get inside of it, but you can have a look from the outside as well. So a unique part of Centennial Park here that actually has a much bigger connection to wider Australian history as well, and often somewhere that's not really that well kind of known about by the general public as well. So we'll have a look inside and we'll move over to our next stop as well. Thanks.